Oh, that joy you feel in your heart is knowing it's a Friday. It's almost as good as watching the Saved by the Bell marathon. We're here for you. It's Yahoo Sports Daily.
Almost.
She's Caroline Fenton. I am Jason Fitz. Caroline has no idea the joy that comes from watching Saved by the Bell. But we do know the joy that we've got for you for the next 2 hours. We have got guests galore and a lot to get into. So, Caroline, let's start this show like we start every single one of them. 3 points. What is on your mind, my friend?
News updates.
Yeah, your generation's probably more Saved by the Bell. Today, my generation is celebrating that it's October 3rd. If you know, then you know. Some WNBA news. If we go back to a couple of days, Nafisa Collier conducted her exit interview and read a pre-written statement, basically scorched earth to Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner of the WNBA. She called out the league's incompetence. She called out the fact that she doesn't feel like the league advocates for her or the entire league. She said that she feels like they are playing for a shield that does not respect or protect us. It was a very damning statement that has really, caught wildfire. We heard support from Angel Reese and Paige Beckers and Nneka Ogwumike and former players, all in unwavering support of what Nafisa Collier had to say. We also have support from Caitlin Clark, who said, quote, "I have great respect for Fee. She made a lot of very valid points. This is the most important time in this league's history." I don't disagree with what Caitlin Clark had to say. We also heard support from Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever teammate. She said, quote, "They might be really great business people, but they don't know blank about basketball." She went on to say, quote, "I'm just tired of our league." Perhaps the most damning thing of all of what Nafisa Collier had to say. And there was a lot that Nafisa Collier had to say that felt like there wasn't really anything that Kathy Engelbert could come back from. But I haven't heard a single coach, current or former, I haven't heard a single player, current or former, push back on what Nafisa Collier had to say. I haven't heard anyone supporting Kathy Engelbert or the league office. In fact, every single person who has spoken out in response to what Nafisa Collier had to say has given Nafisa Collier unwavering support. In fact, they've even doubled down on some of the things that Nafisa Collier had to say. This is a league full of competitors. It is not very often that you can get a 100% united front in a league like this, in any professional sports league, about anything. But this is 100% an unwavering and united front of the WNBA coaches and players and the players union against Kathy Engelbert and the league as a whole. There is truly, I didn't think there was any coming back from it after Nafisa Collier's statement, but today I feel even more emboldened in that take.
Yeah, and this is not going to go anywhere. I know that media availability and exit interviews are a big part of why it continues to be part of the conversation. But as you and I have talked about, and we will continue to talk about, these women are joined together and they are using their voices. This conversation isn't going to get quieter, especially with the WNBA finals right now happening, about to tip off for us tonight, actually, or today. All right, let me get you to my first point. And speaking of what's not going away, the NFL continues to hope that John Gruden's lawsuit against them will go away. But yet again, the courts have said, nope. Not going to happen. The Nevada State Supreme Court unanimously rejected the NFL's attempt to try and get this process reheard. Remember, back in August, they ruled 5-2 at the time, not about the emails being leaked, but about the arbitration process. The NFL believes that any dispute that they have with a head coach is something that has to be handled by arbitration, and that mediation arbitration process would then be handled by Roger Goodell. Now, surprisingly to no one, the courts have said, how can you invent a system where you can cherry pick what you're willing to send to mediation and what you're not, and then have the mediator be the person that made the decision? All of this speaks to a little bit of common sense, but what we now know is there's only one recourse left for the NFL, and it's one that they're expected to take. They are going to at least attempt to get the United States Supreme Court to listen to this case. They are going to attempt one more time to make sure that everything stays behind closed doors. And through all of it, John Gruden is going to continue to do what John Gruden has done from the outset, not take anything to go away. That's what we've seen so far. And so far, there's no proof of concept that Gruden is just going to say, you know what, I'll take a check and we can end all of this. In fact, John Gruden has said several times on the record that in order to make sure that what happened to him doesn't happen to anyone else, he wants his case to be heard. Now, Again, I will stress, even as a Raiders fan, as someone that has a signed jersey in my house by John Gruden, I will stress that the words in his emails were deplorable, and there is no excuse for them. The question here is, were they cherry-picked in some sort of an attempt to have a gotcha moment by the league against John Gruden? And the even bigger part of this is that by disclosing every single email, all of the league's dirty secrets, all of the league's dirty laundry, every email that they went through as part of a Dan Snyder investigation, which is where this started, would all then become part of public court records. That's what the NFL doesn't want. That's what most of us want, just to see the inner workings that we never get to see. And mostly what I want is I want the NFL to be challenged. I want the NFL's ability to sweep everything under the rug to go away. And I want full transparency. None of it excuses the things that John Gruden said. None of it excuses the tone or the language of his messaging. I simply want full accountability for everybody that the league may know has acted in similar fashion. All right, Caroline, let's get to our top point, whether you're talking about Zach Morris or whether you're talking about Wednesdays wearing pink. Yeah, I caught your October 3rd reference. Thank you very much.
There it is.
By the way, this show, we should go full Mean Girls on the show. We should always wear pink and then just see if people get the joke. Like, we should just make Wednesdays Pink Day on this show. I'm in.
Can't wear sweatpants on Fridays. Those are the rules.
Okay, that's a lot
Can't
of
wear
rules.
vests
Like
either.
Well, I'm good on the vest, but the sweatpants, like, hell, we're working remote. We're lucky if we have to wear pants most days. So sweats will continue. All right, let's get to our top point.
Sean McVay belong in our burn book.
He does belong in the burn book because we had controversy to some last night. We have a shocking outcome to most. The San Francisco 49ers, who were a shell of themselves with a bunch of players you've never heard of playing, won 26-23 in overtime over the Rams. And Mac Jones had a huge game. But the biggest thing here that stood out to me was this play call that we're all talking about. Late in the game, in overtime, I should say, driving at about the 12-yard line with the opportunity to simply tie this game. The Rams instead went forward on 4th and 1, and they ran it up the gut. What did you think?
I did not disagree with the decision to go for it. I mean, at that point, the Rams had already converted on 2 former 4th downs. You're at home. You'd rather go for the win when you're at home than anything else. I don't have any problem with the decision to go for it, Fitz. I did, however, have a problem with the play call. Now, I do understand, and I couch every time I'm, an armchair coordinator or an armchair coach the day after, that I don't evaluate decisions to go for it or any risky decisions based off of the outcome. I always evaluate decisions based on, if I put myself in Sean McVay's shoes, what would I do? Because just because it works doesn't mean it's the right decision, and vice versa. Just because it didn't work didn't mean it was the wrong decision. Right decision to go for it, wrong play call. You're just going to run it up the middle against this absolute brick wall of, albeit a shorthanded 49ers front seven, but still just ran it right into a brick wall when Matthew Stafford has been slinging all day long. When the most reliable piece and most trustworthy piece of your offense and of your team is Matthew Stafford and his arm. And I know throwing it on 4th and 1 probably isn't customary. That probably doesn't feel very kosher, but feel of the game and knowing your team and knowing your quarterback, I think, is incredibly important. And I don't think anybody does that better than Sean McVay. I just felt like he overthought it. I felt like he got too cute with it. I felt like he just thought too much about it when it felt so obvious that if you're going to go for it there, you go with the hot hand, and the hot hand was Matthew Stafford. I agree with the 4th and 1 call. I don't agree with the play call.
A little surprised, too, that when the play call came in, Stafford didn't change it at the line of scrimmage, certainly as long as he's played in the league and the autonomy he has in that offense. I will say, for many defenders, over the last 3 seasons, nobody in the NFL actually does better on 4th and 1 than the Rams. 92% conversion rate on 4th and 1 attempts over the last 3 years, which is very impressive. That being said, I hated going for it. I absolutely hated going for it because there's too much on the line. Like, as we wake up today, let's be very clear, the Rams are now a game back from the 49ers, with the 49ers having today the tiebreaker edge. We could have woken up today with the 2 teams tied in the standings. For the rest of the year, the Rams will be chasing the outcome of this game. Now, maybe it normalizes over the course of the season, and all of us sit here and say, well, we don't want to see another game end in a tie. Okay, at the end of the year, what do you want to see? You want to see your team in first place. How do you get there? I don't want to bog anybody down with details here, but a tie is actually better in the standings than a loss. you had a very easy field goal. Now, I know an extra point was blocked earlier, and the Rams have had their issues. So these are all the concerns. I can hear Rams screaming as they're watching this on social media or wherever you're watching our show right now. I hear those screams. But at the end of the day, you lost. You lost the game. And this is the modern NFL. We've gotten so cavalier with fourth and short that even when teams are backed up deep in their own end, they decide to go for it. And there is just ripple consequence to that. I understand that the analytics will tell you to go for it. I also understand that the Rams lost the football game. And yet again, Sean McVay lost to Kyle Shanahan. And it feels like all of this air comes out because you couldn't survive the game. As bad as a tie feels to all of us watching, it's an allowable outcome by the NFL for a reason. So I look at this situation, even though it was at the 12-yard line, the same I would have looked at it as if it's at the 45-yard line. If you have the opportunity to tie the game and live to see another week, you tie the game and live to see another week. It's, to me, the mentality that we've gotten to with fourth downs and going for it on fourth downs and avoiding the opportunity to kick and then playing this cavalier at the end of a game that you could have tied. Man, how often do we walk into the last week of the regular season and it's down to one game? It's down to one drive. Well, if we end up at the end of the year and the Rams are in the final week of the season and they need a win to make the playoffs or a win for their seeding, whatever their situation might be, instead of making it about that one play or that one game, let's come back to this one and remind ourselves that the Rams could have put themselves statistically in a different situation with an easy field goal.
You say if you put yourself in a position to tie, or if you can put yourself in a position to tie, you take it. I could push back and say if you can put your team in a position to win, you take that opportunity to win. And I do hear you. A tie is better than a loss. A win is also better than a tie. And so I think just understanding the context of where it is right now, I think Sean McVay understood, look, we are at home. We're playing an incredibly shorthanded 49ers team. Why not just go for it? I feel like if I'm Sean McVay, I can sleep at night knowing that I did everything in my power to help my team win. And we didn't. And that's frustrating. And we heard it from Sean McVay in the post-game press conference that he was incredibly frustrated and he was mad at himself for that 4th and 1 play call. You know, he took accountability for it. And I think as a coach, that's all you can do. But you can sleep at night knowing that you tried to get a win. Can you sleep at night knowing that, hey, we ended in a tie, and yes, I'm a half a game back versus, a full game back, but what if? What if I just would have tried to go for it? It was 4th and 1. You had it right there. If it's 4th and 6, it's a completely different story. But with 4th and 1, when you've converted 2 of your 4th down attempts during that game,
but even if you convert
I just couldn't justify it.
You convert it, you're still at the 11-yard line. It's not like it was a touchdown. You're still going to have to go and continue to get more yards to try and win the game. At which point,
but you live to die another down at that point.
Or you just take the time. Let me say this: there was one incredibly positive thing I think we can agree on. Mac Jones was a lightning rod last night. Like Mac Jones was everything that you would ever hope that Mac Jones could be in one game. And I just sat here and I thought, my God, I don't know if it's just sitting at the table next to Kyle Shanahan. I don't know if it's having a little bit of pudding with him. I don't know what the secret is. But whatever is happening with quarterbacks that are in the same room as Kyle Shanahan, good God, Mac Jones looked like a different human last night.
I mean, just as we scripted it out, Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne and Jake Tungus and I had it in my notes somewhere. Exactly who we thought was going to be the savior of this game, right? Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne, the 2 dynamic quarterback receiver duo from New England, right? Yeah, no, of course not. Mac Jones, I think, put on a clinic and he showed to the world, look, I'm not just a backup anymore. Whether that is truly what he is or what he isn't, he showed us that last night. I think we have to have a serious conversation about Kyle Shanahan and his ability to develop quarterbacks. And I know we've already had that conversation. We already know that Kyle Shanahan is a quarterback whisperer and is an offensive genius because he got to the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think anyone views either of those two guys, and no disrespect to those two guys, they're not world beaters and they're not elite quarterbacks. I look at Sam Darnold. We talk a lot about how Sam Darnold went from seeing ghosts with the Jets and being miserable with the Panthers to all of a sudden turning around and winning 14 games in Minnesota. We give KOC a lot of credit for that. Like we should, rightfully so. KOC is also a quarterback whisperer and an offensive genius. I think we conveniently forget that Sam Darnold also did have a cup of coffee with the 49ers. That maybe that 14-win season in Minnesota isn't possible without his stopover in San Francisco, without being under the tutelage of Kyle Shanahan, that we now have Jimmy Garoppolo, Sam Darnold, Mac Jones, Brock Purdy, whether it's, career makers or career renaissances, all at the hands of that man right there.
Yeah, there is something changing. And for anyone that hasn't seen Mac Jones' numbers, 3 games, completing 67% of his passes, 900 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception, QB rating of 99. He is putting up starter caliber numbers. And right now, I know it's a small body of work, but every time he gets on the field, you just got to feel like somebody next year that's looking around that needs a quarterback is going to say, hey, the next reclamation project is Mac Jones, and Kyle Shanahan is finding the answer. Whatever he's doing, and not only is Mac Jones something that that teams will consider, but whatever Shanahan is doing, everybody in the league needs to start copying. Got a lot to get into. We are just getting rolling on this Friday edition. Coming up next, a strange statement from Kyler Murray. We'll try and make sense of it as we tell you about the Cardinals-Titans game next. Packers coach Mike McCarthy was relieved of his duties after a 20-17 loss to the Arizona Cardinals that dropped the club to 4-7-1 on the season. That was obviously several years ago. Why are we bringing it up to you today? We're bringing it up to you today because we have another coach that, in the eyes of many, is on the hot seat taking on the Arizona Cardinals this coming weekend as the Titans take on the Cardinals. And let's not get it twisted. The Titans right now, I think, are clearly the worst team in the NFL. I don't think it's close. I think the Titans are underperforming every single expectation and are clearly in the leader's seat to try and get the first pick overall in the draft. The question is, with a loss here, Caroline, do you think anything changes in Tennessee? Like you and I both have been around this team and around this market for a long time. I'm trying to get a sense. Do you think Callahan is about to be done?
Should he be? Yes. I have seen all that I needed to see going back to last year. And I think that there hasn't been anything that has happened this season that would make me think otherwise. I think there was a fair argument to be made that Brian Callahan could have been let go last year. Things haven't gotten any better. So I think he should. Will he is the question. And I lean no. And that's just based off of some conversations that I have had with people in Nashville with boots on the ground, with a lot of connections to the Tennessee Titans organization, they don't believe that Brian Callahan is going to be let go this week. Now, that doesn't mean that Brian Callahan is going to stick around forever. That doesn't mean that Brian Callahan's seat isn't incredibly hot, because it is, and it should be. But everything that I've heard is that Brian Callahan will not be let go this week. My question, though, is, and the pushback that I have to that is, what more do you need to see? To Amy Adams Strunk, the owner of the Tennessee Titans, what more do you need to see to know for certain that Brian Callahan is not the answer in Tennessee? How much longer does he need to be around your first overall pick in Cam Ward, who is the lone bright spot in this organization? How much longer does he need to be around Cam Ward for you to say, no, this is not going to be the answer, and we're not going to let him ruin our young quarterback? Amy Adams Strunk has made some questionable decisions as an owner. She fired John Robinson, their former general manager, in the middle of the season when the Titans had a winning record and had the number one seed in the division, or first place in the division. And then, so that's a very questionable decision to fire the general manager. And I think it's a very questionable decision to continue to hold on to Brian Callahan. He's a good dude, not a very good head coach.
Yeah, I want to be careful here to not personally insult Amy Adams Strunk, because I don't know Amy Adams Strunk. So I'm talking simply about what we can tell from the football decisions that are made. Amy Adams Strunk runs this organization like she's clueless. She runs this organization like she has no idea what she's doing. And if we were going to make it a bucket of the owners in the NFL that we believe run their teams in a way that will simply run them into the ground for eternity, Amy Adams Strunk is on that list. And I had one person define why Brian Callahan is around as, this is the way it was worded. This is the word I was given: meat shield. He's a meat shield that's being just propped up in front of Amy Adams Strunk and the Titans organization to ensure that she doesn't have to answer any questions and they don't get any more egg on their face. That is the only, if the reason you are keeping your coach is because you're embarrassed that you hired your coach, that says something. And frankly, I was on a Nashville radio station last week and heard some of what their team president said at the time of the hiring of Brian Callahan, and why they absolutely hit a home run, and why they knew that they had the guy the minute he walked into the building. And I would just remind everybody, if you think firing Brian Callahan will fix the Titans, it won't, because the same people that picked Brian Callahan are going to then decide who they're picking now as head coach, because Amy Adams Strunk at the end of the day is the person that actually has final yes or no on everything. And she runs the organization like she's incompetent. So let's look at the other side of this then. We'll take on
that is so grotesque.
It's so specific. Meat shield. It's just like, hey, but
I can picture it in my head.
If you, just to be very clear, Amy, if you want to pay me an NFL head coaching salary to be your meat shield, I'll take all the questions all day long. I mean, that's like millions of dollars to be a meat shield. I'd be a hell of a thick pork chop. Like, I'd be all in on just prop me a bone-in pork chop, prop me right up in front of Amy Adams Strunk. Let's look at the other side of this matchup, though, because the Arizona Cardinals are not without their own strange news story. I don't know if you saw this, but Kyler Murray had an interesting quote, okay, because he was being asked about the new practice facility that will open in 2028. And his quote about that facility was, and this is a quote, "Hopefully I'm here to see it." That is strange to come from a starting quarterback that is in his 7th year in the league, that knows everything that he says is going to be analyzed, that understands that he has had his entire body of work analyzed over and over and over again. And we're constantly trying to figure out who the Cardinals are and what they're going to be moving forward. So now with the 2028 training facility opening, instead of saying looks beautiful, can't wait, which is the easy answer, hopefully I'm here to see it, that just strikes me as weird, Caroline.
It is very odd. And I do know that coaches, GMs, players will use the media in order to get messages across. So I guess this is Kyler Murray's way of utilizing the media to get a message across to ownership, to try and, get a longer term deal. I guess that's what he's saying here. But you point out a very important piece of this, that Kyler Murray is now in his 7th year in the NFL. He wholeheartedly understands, or he should understand, that what he says and what he does is impactful. When you are a franchise quarterback of an organization, which is what Kyler Murray is, everything you do, everything you say, everything you post on social media, everything that gets put into your contract is impactful. And nobody should know that better than Kyler Murray after the whole independent study clause in his contract because he can't get off of Call of Duty. The Instagram he posted earlier last month that was incredibly, controversial. And now this, it's just like think a little bit more about what you're saying. Think more about the impact of your words, because here we are 2 days removed from a game where the Arizona Cardinals should make a massive, statement against this truly crap Tennessee Titans team. And we're instead talking about what Kyler Murray said about a training facility that's opening in 3 years. I didn't even know the Cardinals were opening a training facility. We shouldn't even be talking about an Arizona Cardinals training facility, but we are because Kyler Murray has inserted himself into the headlines.
Easy wins. That's the thing. And this is where everybody that's yelled at us about Shedeur takes over the course of the last few days. And believe me, I see it on my Instagram. Thank you. You've been heard. There is this part of me that looks at it and says, this isn't a different standard. Quarterbacks are held to a different standard, and that's just the way it goes. And, Dan Orlovsky was the one that very smartly said on ESPN this week that every single thing that you ever do when you are a quarterback in the NFL is a job audition. It is an opportunity for you to show the world exactly who you are and exactly what you need and exactly what's going to happen. You are always sort of viewed differently when you're a quarterback. That's the rule. I don't make the rule. That's just the way it's going to be. So if you're Kyler Murray and you come out and you use this moment to say, hopefully I'm going to be, even if it's a moment off the cuff, you got to be better. You have to know better. And that's why I constantly say, Caroline, coach speak is one of the easiest things in the world to do. I've had to do it multiple times in my career. Are there moments that I've been uncomfortable in front of a microphone and you're like, yeah, I'm not going to throw that person under the bus? Or when somebody's just a dumbass and you can't say anything about it, you're like, yep, I'm just going to have to take the higher road. It's just part of what happens in certain careers when you get to a certain platform and you have a microphone. So when you are a quarterback at any level, I don't care if we're talking about college. I don't care if we're talking about the XFL. I don't care if we're talking about the NFL. When you are a quarterback, the reason that everybody flocks to your locker is because they want to get your soundbite. And when you have that with great platform comes great responsibility. You are just in a situation where the easiest thing to do is say nothing at all, which is what most quarterbacks do. And it drives us crazy. It drives us crazy when they say nothing. But when they are too honest, it drives us crazy. It's a lose-lose. I acknowledge that. If it's going to be a lose-lose, though, don't put yourself in the headlines, because right now I can't tell anybody what the real identity of the Arizona Cardinals is. And I've been trying to figure out, if we had to summarize who the Cardinals are in a quick elevator pitch to everybody that's never watched the NFL, what is that elevator statement? And I don't know. I don't know. And what I'm trying to figure out is how this helps anybody in the process. Because to me, now all you've done is you've created questions that are going to be answered by everybody, from your coaching staff to you, to your teammates. Everybody's going to be asking these Kyler Murray questions when they're having a pretty good year. Just let the football be the story. And you let the football be the story if you just say the easy thing.
Kyler Murray's under contract through 2027, and the Cardinals have an option to bring him back in 2028. Is October 3rd, 2025, when you are a couple of days removed from an actual game in the middle of the season, 2 years before your contract is up, is that the appropriate time to start talking about your future with the Cardinals organization? Is that the time? Because that really, to me, Fitz, that sounds like a March conversation. That sounds like a March 2026 conversation when you start talking about your future with the club. Not when you're in the middle of the season, 2 years removed from a team option.
You're 1,000% right. And Kyler Murray is smart enough to know this. He has nobody but himself to blame. We got a lot of weekend action. 100%. We got a lot of weekend action. We got to break down. We're going to bring in Ben Fawkes. We're going to figure out what to make of everything happening across the sports landscape from a betting standpoint. We'll do that next. The Phillies earned a first-round bye in the MLB postseason, but they're a slight underdog against the defending champion Dodgers, who are now favored to win the World Series. God, just a couple of days ago, that was not the case. All right, we bring in Yahoo Sports senior betting analyst Ben Fawkes to discuss the MLB postseason from a betting perspective. Ben, thanks for the time this morning. Let's start with this Dodgers-Phillies matchup. Dodgers favored. What do you make of it?
Yeah, so I actually went back and looked. The Dodgers have made the postseason every year since 2013. They've made at least a divisional round every year since 2013, and they've actually been favored in that divisional round series in every single season. So obviously they win the NL West just about every year. They didn't have to go through the wild card round very often. Obviously this year they did. But I think odds makers know as well, this is a veteran team, right? They've been around. Even the players they got from other teams, right, like Mookie Betts, who've been there. It's just a team, obviously, that won the World Series last year. So they get a little bit more the benefit of the doubt. They're actually a slight underdog in game one against the Phillies. And obviously, they had to play only a 2-game series, right, instead of a 3-game series. Not as stressful necessarily a series using up the bullpen and other things with only those 2 games and kind of the way that they went against the Reds as well. Phillies, obviously, you're rested. You get Christopher Sanchez. You can set up your rotation. So it's going to be a really good series. I think, obviously, the way kind of it played out as a Mets fan, you didn't think they were probably going to beat the Dodgers either. You would have liked the Reds to at least put up a little more of a fight. But I think these are 2 of the teams everyone wants to see. And ultimately, it's a little bit like March Madness when you get to some of those later rounds and you get some of the big time matchups between the big blue bloods. This is a big time matchup. Can't wait for it to start. And the Dodgers have ticked down a little bit. It was minus 125 when it opened at BetMGM. Now the Dodgers minus 120 to win the series. So should be a really close series. And, Shohei Ohtani in Philadelphia against that lineup doesn't get much better than that.
Ugh, I hear you, Ben. I know the people want Dodgers, Yankees, but give me Mariners, Brewers. Like, give me the underdogs. Give me the small market teams.
Let's go Mariners. I agree.
Let's go Big Dumper. College football. It's not the sexiest slate of the weekend, but a game that isn't normally sexy is incredibly impactful this weekend, and that is Vanderbilt, Alabama. Vandy took down Bama last year as 22.5-point underdogs. They opened as 12.5-point underdogs. That is now down to 10.5. So is the betting public telling us they're expecting yet another doors win against the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, so I think you always want to be careful, right, when there's what we call a public underdog, and I think Vanderbilt is going to be that this weekend. It's not overwhelming, kind of 60% of the bets, maybe a little higher of the money on Vanderbilt to cover this game. Line did come down from Alabama minus 12.5 to minus 10.5, so I think some sharp action probably at those higher numbers, and Diego Pavia, I mean, he was 125 to 1 to win the Heisman. All of a sudden, he's 15 to 1. And obviously, this is a massive game for his potential chances. I think a couple things, though, working against Vandy. The first is just this is a big step up in competition. Their most impressive win, I think you'd probably say, was against South Carolina, where they dominated. I believe they won 31-7. But Lenora Sellers did go out and got injured in the second quarter in that game. And they're only, I believe, a small underdog, 3 points or so. So it's not like they've had a signature win necessarily. And their other 3 wins were over Charleston Southern, Georgia State, and Utah State. They were at least a 22-point favorite in all those games. So you can only beat who's in front of you. That's exactly what they've done. They also had a win over Virginia Tech as a small underdog. But I think this is a little different case with Alabama. That was Alabama as a 23-point favorite in Vandy. Now Bama the next season is only a 10.5-point favorite. This is at Alabama as well. And Alabama already had that kind of wake-up call, right, where they got punched in the face week 1 against Florida State as a 2-touchdown underdog, losing that game. I don't think they're going to be caught off guard at all by Vanderbilt. They've had a year to kind of figure out what they were doing last season that worked so well, and obviously they put up 40 points on Alabama. So I think there's a little bit of a buy low spot on Alabama. This line, I think, should be a little higher. And if you're getting 10.5, it seems a little short on an Alabama team that looked really good last week and seems to have righted the ship.
Yeah, roll tide. That's all. I'm just roll tide. We'll get more into this later, but I think this one's going to be ugly. Ravens-Texans this weekend. You have some pretty stunning numbers on the Ravens. The change in the spread based on Lamar Jackson's injury was shocking to me. Tell everybody about it and what it means to you.
Yeah, so I do an article every year where I kind of ask a bunch of odds makers what the point spread difference is between the starter and the backup. And the reason I do that is for situations exactly like this, where a quarterback goes out and it's kind of an unknown situation, and then all of a sudden the line shifts, right? So sportsbooks have look ahead lines. This line at some sportsbooks last weekend, when with Lamar Jackson healthy, was the Ravens -10, -9.5 or -10. This went all the way to Texans -2.5. So that's a 12.5 point move. Now, that's not all Lamar Jackson. The Ravens, as I joked with Fitz last night on Inside Coverage, their injury list is much like a CVS receipt. It just keeps going. Every single defensive player, seemingly, and offensive player is on there. So this is Lamar Jackson. It's also Kyle Hamilton. It's also Ronnie Stanley. It's also Roquan Smith. All of their important players who might only be worth, right, a quarter point, half a point, if that, to the spread, are there. And then what odds makers look at as well is what we call cluster injuries. And that's where if you have injuries all in a specific position group. And the Ravens have a couple of those groups, but I think most specifically at cornerback, where they could be down 2 or 3 of their top starters. And that's not going to be good going up against Nico Collins and the Texans offense. So a bad Ravens defense, also a bad Texans offense, but you have the backup Cooper Rush in there. I don't recall really a game where you've had this much line movement. We've seen sharp action both ways. There's sharps who think, hey, I'm getting the Ravens at plus money just with that infrastructure and Cooper Rush. I trust that, and they'll be able to get pressure potentially against a bad Texans offensive line. And you feel people that, hey, this isn't necessarily enough. There's been sharp money at Texans -1.5. It did seem like 2.5 was the resistance point where there was sharp money on Baltimore +2.5. But it's just a wild game. This is a big game, obviously, for the Ravens. They play the Rams next week. Rams not going to be happy coming into that game off of a Thursday night loss. So the Ravens have the potential here to drop to 1-5, a really important game if they can get this one, and just a fascinating game from a gambling perspective, too, with that line movement.
But they're still favored to win their division. Like, that's the stunning part. What's it going to take for Vegas to decide the Steelers can win this division?
Yeah, so I think the reason they're still about -130, I think -135 at BetMGM to win the division. The Steelers +175. A couple of those reasons. One is that they haven't played the Steelers yet, right? And so they get 2 games. I think they play the Steelers week 14 and then week 17 or week 18. Obviously, presumably Lamar Jackson will be back by then, and who knows what the Steelers look like in terms of injuries. And then the Ravens schedule gets a lot easier. After this, they have Browns, Bengals, Packers, Colts. They don't have as much, or excuse me, that's the Steelers schedule. The Steelers schedule is backloaded. It's much more difficult, and the Ravens have a little easier schedule as well. So assuming Lamar gets healthy, even if they go to, let's say, 1-5, there are some winnable games on the back end. They still get to play the Steelers twice, and you assume that maybe with that tiebreaker, they still have a better shot with the infrastructure. And again, Aaron Rodgers, 41 years old. Can he hold up for 17 games as well?
Let's switch over to the NFC then, because Ben, you should have seen my face and the utter shock that I was in when I saw that the New Orleans Saints were favored against the Giants on Sunday. Now, I don't think the Giants are any sort of world beaters, but the Giants are coming off of a win over the Chargers. So why favor the Saints here in this position?
Yeah, the Saints haven't been as bad, I think, as we necessarily thought they would be before the season, right? They had a win total of 5.5. Everyone was betting the under, and they still certainly might hit that under. You obviously have to win a couple games to go over 5.5. But I think just seeing how they looked against the Bills, right? They were in that game, even if you didn't feel like the Bills necessarily were going to lose the game, and they were a 14.5 point underdog. So they were always kind of in that game. Whereas the Giants, Jackson Dart threw for 100-some yards. I think they ran the ball, I want to say 42 times between their running backs and Jackson Dart, but only 3.8 yards a carry. So, and obviously Malik Neighbors now out. So such a big drop off potentially for that offense and for a rookie quarterback. This is something where we have seen the line flip as well. The Giants opened as a small favorite, now an underdog. The the Saints as well do have a, somewhat of a home field advantage too. And you do have a week, even though it doesn't seem like that much, of tape on Jackson Dart, right? What he likes to do, potentially when he scrambles, things you can throw at him in terms of blitzes. So I think it's certainly surprising. The Giants are the most bet underdog by tickets at BetMGM, and they've probably 65% of the bets, 60% of the money on the Giants to cover as that small underdog as well. So the public probably is going to be backing the Giants, seeing the same thing you are, Caroline. How in the world are they an underdog against New Orleans? But the Saints also, if they're going to win a game, this is one you get up for, and knowing with a rookie quarterback, you also can win the game. Doesn't mean they're going to, but I think Spencer Rattler has looked a lot better than we thought. And I was joking with Frank Schwab. I was like, some point, Spencer Rattler is going to win a game in the NFL. It's going to happen at some point. This might be the week.
Yeah, some bad teams in the league. Real quick before we get you out of here, survivor pool people all looking at the Bills, Patriots. Is there a survivor pool option that stands out to you for this weekend?
Yeah, well, hopefully you're still alive after the Rams last night. I think we'll see what that did to survivor pools and losing to the Niners. Listen, I think the Lions are a 10.5-point favorite at the Bengals. That offense seems pretty inept. So there are going to be other chances to use the Lions. The Cardinals are a 7.5-point favorite against the Titans, who have been dreadful. Titans are last in yards per play on offense, 28th on defense. But it's still Kyler Murray. I don't know if I want to trust my survivor pool necessarily to him. Not a ton of options, though. Those are probably the two best. I would say just take the Lions and move on. The Bills, a little scary against the Patriots. And even though the Eagles are 4-0, they're only a 3.5-point favorite against the Broncos. That's a spot, again, I would stay away from with that strong defense that Denver has.
You can check out Inside Coverage wherever you get your pods. It's out there from last night. It's also on YouTube. And check out Ben's work all over Yahoo Sports. Ben, appreciate you, brother. Have a great weekend. Thanks for hanging out with us.
You too.
You're the best, Ben.
All right,
Thank you.
From this weekend to next summer, Conor McGregor is going to make his return on the White House lawn. We'll tell you about it next. McGregor says the deal is done. That from Uncrowned via Sean Hannity. It's a done deal. The White House UFC event reportedly on the docket for June 2026 on the White House South Lawn to commemorate America's 250th anniversary. And it looks like it could be headlined by Conor McGregor's. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports Daily. It has raised a lot of questions. Like, do we actually think this is going to happen? Conor McGregor, I feel like, flirts with the concept of I'm back, I'm not back, I'm back, I'm not back, I want the money, I don't want the money, you know, I'll do what you want, I won't do what you want. Do we actually believe that this fight is going to happen next summer?
I mean, McGregor doesn't have a great track record. I mean, he withdrew from UFC 303. He was pulled from UFC 200. When was the last time we saw McGregor fight? It's been like several years. I don't think we've seen him fight since COVID. So he doesn't have a great track record, but this one does feel different. This one isn't just any other fight. This one isn't just, any other UFC event. This one is going to have more pomp, more circumstance, more attention, more, media surrounding it than any other fight probably in UFC history. So I'll say, yeah, I do think that this happens, and I think it'd be a great thing for the sport if it does.
Yeah, look, I think this happens, but to your point, not even when's the last time he fought, because the last time he fought was June 10th of 2021. The last time he won was January 18th of 2020. The last time we saw him actually win. And when's the last time he was Conor McGregor? That being said, he is still the brand of Conor McGregor, and I don't think, given the current climate and everything that goes into a fight on the White House lawn, I'd have a hard time imagining that Conor McGregor is telling the world it's done if it's not done. I think the fight happens. And like you said, and I want to agree with this loudly, I think this is a great moment for fights, right? Like there is what's going to get attention? This is going to get massive attention. And I want to be very clear, as we are always clear on Yahoo Sports Daily. We're not here to have a political conversation about the White House, right? So this is about an event happening on the White House lawn. And when you start talking about events on the White House lawn, yeah, give me the biggest names in the sport. As I've said many times, Caroline, I'm not sure that there's much left in boxing particularly, but even in MMA in general, that random people that don't watch the sport will suddenly sit up for. Conor McGregor is still that. And I know boxing and MMA fighting fans will come in and say there are better, there are bigger, there are all of these things. Man, that's a little bit like going back to pro wrestling. If you grew up watching pro wrestling in the 80s like I did, Hulk Hogan was the legend. Hulk Hogan, by the estimation of most wrestlers, was not a very good wrestler. Didn't matter. He was a phenomenon. Everybody watched him. Conor McGregor is a phenomenon that everybody watches. So if you put this fight on the White House lawn to commemorate the 250th birthday, anniversary, I should say, if you put it on there, people are going to watch. I think it's going to be a huge moment.
Yeah, look, and I do not pretend to be an expert on anything's combat sports. That's what we have our friend Ariel Helwani for. But I did have the privilege of getting to work with the UFC team at ESPN for a brief stint. Just got some experience in an area that I didn't have a lot of experience in. And in that short, brief experience, I understood that the UFC fandom is small, but it is mighty. It doesn't reach the same span as the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball, but fans of combat sports show up. They are supportive. They consume media. They are incredibly invested in the lives of some of these fighters. So how can UFC build upon that incredibly loyal fan base and start to become more of a larger fan base? Large and also mighty. I think that, the new deal with Paramount and CBS is huge for combat sports because now you no longer are sitting behind a paywall. Because I will be completely transparent. I'm not a massive combat sports fan. That doesn't mean I'm not going to buy into it. I'm not going to watch it or consume it. But I'm not going to be that average Joe Schmo that pays $75 for one fight. I'll watch it, go to a friend's house and watch it if they're willing to pay for it, but I'm not always going to be the person to cough up the cash. I think there's probably a lot of sports fans that probably live in that same realm. But if I can watch a fight on Paramount Plus or on CBS, I'm going to watch it. No longer does that barrier exist. So I think that is the first step to expanding your fan base. People love spectacles. People love events. That's why I think everybody loved that Braves-Reds, or at least the idea of the Braves-Reds game at Bristol Motor Speedway. I think people kind of fell in love with the Field of Dreams game. I think people fall in love with fun events and fun matchups in unorthodox places. That's exactly what this is. So maybe this is an opportunity to open your sport up to people that maybe wouldn't have bought into it previously. Not only are you breaking down the paywall, but you're providing them a can't miss spectacle. And I'll be tuned in. Absolutely, I'll be tuned into it.
I think there's something incredible too and powerful about doing it on the White House lawn. Frankly, in my music career, I was lucky enough during my lifetime to play for Reagan, Bush Sr., Clinton, George W. Bush. I played for Obama twice. Like, I've been to the White House many times in my life. There is a incredible honor that comes with being on the grounds of the White House, no matter who's in office. I've played for people that I agreed with and didn't agree with politically. I've had the opportunity to perform for presidents I agreed with and didn't agree with politically. I've got pictures of presidents I agreed with and didn't agree with politically. Because at the end of the day, the White House is bigger than any one person that's in office, and it's bigger than any one moment that's happening in our country. The White House is a magical place for America. So now, much like when they put the fireworks at the 4th of July on the front of the White House, when they put an orchestra out there, when we were playing stupid country music songs for presidents, when we were part of these moments, you have the opportunity to do something that transcends. You have the opportunity to be part of something that feels different. Look at the way we gravitate towards sports around the Olympics. Look at the way we gravitate towards national pride around any event. It's part of the reason that the NBA is changing their All-Star game format. It's part of the reason we fell in love with the NHL when they started to do the World's competition. Like, there are moments where we can gravitate to patriotism, and that's okay. And the White House symbolizes patriotism. So no matter who's fighting, if you're telling me that they're going to put a massive event on the White House lawn and people are going to have the opportunity to watch it for free on network TV, I think it's a special moment. I hope they do more of these things. I hope we see more opportunities to celebrate America together, where we can all come together no matter what your political beliefs are. And that's part of what sports are supposed to do. Sports are supposed to bring us together, not divide us. Sports are supposed to be the moment that you're in a bar. It doesn't matter what the guy next to you or the girl next to you believes. It matters that you're fans of the same team and you suddenly have this bond together. I think there's an incredible bonding opportunity that can come from watching something happen on the White House lawn. So to me, this is a win for fighting. It's a win for McGregor, obviously, because he's going to get a massive payday to do it. I'm sure it's going to be generational money, whatever they decide for him. It's going to be massive, but he's getting it because he is one of those types of names. And frankly, I hope they keep adding to the card. I hope they give us every single big name. I don't care if they're a capable fighter. I just care if people will care. And if people will care, and for a few hours, we can turn on an event with the White House in the background, and we can all just come together and watch something cool happening at the nation's capital. Frankly, I don't care about politics. I care about bringing everybody together. And if this can bring people together around fighting, I think it's great for the sport and it's great for the country.
And that is so very beautifully said by you, because it's true. It's part of the reason why I love sports. It is, I think, one of the most uniting things that we have in a world where there's not a lot of things that can unite us. But I do have to kind of laugh at the irony of celebrating, being a united front and cohesion by punching each other in the face.
Heck yeah. Well,
Remember.
Okay, but I'll be old man on the block for a second. I remember the wide world of sports, and I think a lot of people watching may remember, like back in the 80s on Saturday afternoons, you would get, ABC Wide World of Sports, right? And it would be some random thing, because this is back before most of us had ESPN. You didn't get to see things all the time. So, like, your weird, I don't know, a random horse race nobody ever heard of, like today's equivalent of the Ocho, where you're suddenly watching kickball playoffs, right? Like, those sorts of things would have been on the Wide World of Sports. And they put those things in weird spots all the time, and that's where you watch it. Like, frankly, Evel Knievel jumping over something didn't really appeal to me, but Evel Knievel jumping over all of Las Vegas appealed to me. Like, the backdrop became something in the wide world of sports. So you're right. Like, it is weird to sit there and say, especially Conor McGregor, like a polarizing person to many people. Let's go watch a bunch of people knock the snot out of each other and celebrate America. But at the same time, it's just, to me, it's the backdrop of the house, but you're 1,000% right. I think it just captures nostalgia because of my age for what the wide world of sports was. And I think that's why, like, I love the concept of doing more of it. But you are right. Like, it is weird to sit here in the one hand and say, bring us all together while we watch people knock the hell out of each other.
Yeah, it feels a little funky, but I think it's such a wonderful opportunity for the UFC. Look, maybe this is a little bit of a controversial move. Hey, politics are inherently controversial. I don't think the UFC has ever shied away from controversy for an opportunity for financial growth, for an opportunity for growth of the sport. I do wonder, what kind of numbers this fight could potentially do, because I will admit my ignorance in the and viewership or the popularity of UFC fights. So if you take that paywall away, what, how far can this fight reach? Like, does this go beyond the United States? Is this a global phenomenon that people are going to be tuned into across the globe? Is this something that can do like Super Bowl kind of numbers? And I know that sounds crazy that this could do Super Bowl numbers, but do you think that's in the realm of possibility, Fitz? Like, just how far is this reach?
Why not? Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson had over 108 million global views on Netflix. That's by far the most watched fight. Over 108 global views on Netflix. And I think there's a global element to this, all right? Like, that's part of where the appeal is. And we're watching, again, staying out of the political realm of the conversation of the why and the how, we're watching preseason NBA games right now that are taking place in Saudi Arabia, right? Like, part of the reason, and the world watches these things. So there is a moment for me where you talk about 108 million views for Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. Compare that to, according to AI, the most watched UFC fight in history was UFC 229, which had 2.4 million pay-per-views, right? So pay-per-view buys. So the difference when you start making things more accessible is so incredibly massive. That's why you have this opportunity. So the opportunity comes in. You're right. Like, how many people, depending on when they show it and what the backdrop looks like, how many people will tune in for just a couple of minutes to see what a fight on the White House lawn looks like, right? I think the answer to that is substantial, and that's why you see here the $7.7 billion deal for 7 years. All numbered events will be on CBS. So for free. We'll get the opportunity to see how that plays out. We got a big weekend of college football ahead of us. Let's get to one of our favorites. We'll talk to him next. Dan Wolken's going to join us. He's ready to break it down for you. Vandy, Bama, he's there. We'll figure out what to expect next. Vandy's breakthrough is about more than Diego Pavia. After decades of apathy, the school aligned behind a sports-loving chancellor who gave permission to finally act like an SEC member. We have no tolerance for mediocrity anywhere. That from Dan Wolken. And Dan Wolken is going to join us right now on Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We're going to bring Dan into this conversation. Dan, I'm going to start right there because I was on radio at the time in 102.5 The Game in Nashville, a station that Caroline also worked on, the ESPN radio station. And this is 2016. I asked at the time, the athletic director when Vandy was going to care about sports. And I got this direct answer from that athletic director. We'll care about it when our students care about it. They have better things to do, and so do we. And I remember that so distinctly. Like, at some point, your tweet there resonates with me because it speaks to a massive change. How did they get to this point?
Yeah, well, there's several things I think that have lined up, but you have to start with the current chancellor, Daniel Diermeyer. He is somebody who I think is unlikely just as a figure to be the start of Vanderbilt's sports renaissance. He was born in Germany. He grew up in Berlin. He came to the United States for college in 1988. He was at USC. He fell in love with college football going to the UCLA-USC game. He's had this long administrative career, and when he became chancellor of Vanderbilt, he said, look, if we're going to be in the SEC, we need to act like an SEC program. We need to compete. We don't have the infrastructure here. So they started this $300 million campaign. The university kicked in $100 million. They've transformed their facilities. Here you have NIL, transfer portal. And I think what he has done at the top of the chain at Vanderbilt is set the tone all the way down that we need to have campus cooperation from the academic side, from the admission side, transfers, make certain accommodations for people to study at the right time and balance that with practice. It's really an all hands effort, I think, now at Vanderbilt. Obviously there's money, but it's also culture. It's also cooperation. And I think the students have gotten behind it. From what I've been told, it's really in your face now all over campus. We are an SEC sports loving school, and I think the teams have responded.
Also give athletic director Candace DeReilly so much credit because I had the opportunity to talk to her last fall, and she talked about how they want to invest more in sports, how they are a proud sports and athletic department. So, I mean, a whole lot of change happening over there at Vanderbilt. And I love that we get a Vanderbilt-Alabama matchup that matters. I love that we had a Virginia-Florida State matchup last week that mattered. I don't think that those kind of matchups between the Vandies of the world and the Blue Bloods of the world would be possible without the new changes in the transfer portal, without NIL. So I'll ask you, Dan, do you think it is a good thing for the sport that we have matchups like this, Vanderbilt-Alabama, that actually matter?
1,000%. And the one thing, as I talk to people all over the country this year, that just jumps out is parity. There's nobody in college football, at least right now, as we sit here at the beginning of October, who you can clearly identify, well, they're going to be in the national championship game because they're just that much better than everybody else. And we saw a really good game last week, Georgia, Alabama. But the conversation nationally with the people who really know what's going on, with the true insiders of the sport, is what were we watching? Were we watching two teams that are just so far above everybody else? They're going to win the SEC. They're going to play again in the SEC championship game. Or did we just watch two pretty good teams that are kind of flawed? And now you have somebody like Vandy, 5-0, stepping up in class clearly to play against Alabama, but they beat them last year. You know, and you got somebody with Diego Pavia at quarterback. He's not going to be scared. If this is a close game in the third quarter, the fourth quarter, I think of anybody on the field on either team, he's the one you want with the ball in his hands. And why is that possible? Because Vanderbilt went to New Mexico State. Again, Vanderbilt went to New Mexico State and said, we need to have some of what you've got in your football program. They bring in Pavia, a couple other players, a couple coaches, and they've taken on that identity. And what people at Vanderbilt told me this past week was, yeah, Pavia will say some crazy stuff. He'll trash talk. But you know what? Unlike in past eras of Vanderbilt sports, the people there believe it. They buy into it, and they feed off his confidence.
So let's look at a possible outcome here for a second. Indulge me. Vandy wins this football game. I want to take both sides of this. Vandy wins this football game. Do they then become part of the playoff conversation in your mind?
Yeah, look at the games they've got coming up. They're probably going to take a couple losses for sure because the schedule's tough. I don't think anyone in the SEC is going undefeated this year. But they also have great opportunities at home. Teams like Missouri. I mean, those are wins that will boost a playoff resume. You beat Alabama, that's a playoff win. So, yeah, like they're going to need to win, I think, one of the key road games they've got, whether it's Alabama, whether it's Tennessee. They're going to need to win one of those. But if they take care of business at home, clearly they're going to be in the playoff picture. And this game, I think, would be a prime opportunity.
So then the flip side of it is DeBoer loses to Vandy. Sky is falling?
Well, they're extremely happy this week because they just beat Georgia on the road, and everyone, they're back, and this is DeBoer's team now. Again, we'll see. I wrote last weekend, I actually think the way they look this week, coming off that win, is more important than what we saw last week, because when you're that talented, you're going to win some games. And they did. Now, how do you handle success now that you've gone back to campus and everyone's telling you how good you are again? Look, the DeBoer thing is interesting. He's obviously had a rough start, okay? We know he's a really good football coach. What is his quality of life? They lose a couple more games. Are the fans making the mental adjustment that, hey, this isn't Saban anymore. This is a different era of college football. There's way more parity. It's all about just getting in the playoff. Or do they still have that mindset that they demand perfection? And we'll see how the narrative plays out depending on the way these games go. But, I do think Kalen DeBoer is an interesting guy just to look at as you get to the end of the season. Does he jump at a job like the UCLA job, for instance, because it's just easier? And if they pay him a certain amount of money, can he leave that craziness behind? I don't think that's off the table.
To your point, I think the standard still is perfection. When there was a woman saying that if she won the lottery, the first thing she would do would be buy out Kalen DeBoer. Welcome to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The standard is perfection. But is that standard possible anymore in today's college football?
No, the one thing you're saying, and the reason why, like that Georgia-Alabama game last week, why the people in the sport are saying that game shows how much parity there really is, because those two teams, they're good, they're talented, but there are holes. There are big holes. You look at Georgia's defense. That is not the same defense that Kirby Smart had when they won back-to-back national championships. Alabama, same thing. They don't really run the ball all that well. So those kinds of issues that are just so glaring in terms of personnel, you didn't have before, because teams like Georgia and Alabama were able to stack recruiting classes and hoard guys on their scout team for 2 and 3 years before they were forced to be starters. That doesn't work anymore. You get guys like that, they're not playing, they transfer. Georgia and Alabama do not have the same kind of depth they had before, and so thus you cannot expect a run of dominance where you're just blowing people away every week like you had before. It's maybe not as fun for Alabama fans, but I think overall it's made college football a lot more interesting.
You bring up Alabama's inability to run the football. This is a fascinating philosophical matchup, but let's get into the actual X's and O's of it all. Alabama has struggled to run the football. They struggled to stop the run as well. I mean, Georgia, even in a loss, ran the ball for 7 yards a carry and for 227 total yards. Vanderbilt can run the football. That is a massive part of what they want to do. Vanderbilt wants to hold on to the ball. They want to maintain time of possession. It's how they beat Bama last year. They had the ball for 42 minutes. What do you make of this matchup of kind of Vandy's strength on Alabama weakness?
Listen, at Vanderbilt this week, what they are talking about is how much better they are than they were last year when they beat Alabama. And that's because they're better on the line of scrimmage. They have gone out and gotten Diego Pavia some serious help, more than he had last year. That's a real team. Now, again, what will happen Saturday, I can't predict that. We'll see. But they look a lot more like a true SEC team on both lines of scrimmage. They are definitely going to try to run the ball. Obviously, the threat that Pavia presents when he's able to keep it, the reads he can make with the option, they're tough to defend. It's been proven. I don't think a lot of teams in the SEC have totally figured it out yet. But, I think you look back at that Georgia game last week, if there's maybe one regret that Georgia would have coming out of that game is that they didn't blitz enough. They didn't put enough pressure on Ty Simpson, allowed him to get a little too comfortable throwing the ball. I don't think Vanderbilt's going to make that mistake. I think they're going to see on film what they saw and what all of us saw against Georgia. And I think they're going to really turn up the heat, try to create some chaos, maybe get a couple turnovers. It's just going to be really interesting to see, I think, who scores first in this game, who plays from ahead. I think if Vanderbilt gets the lead, Alabama's got to play from behind. I think it gets a little bit nervous for them. And I think, their staff on the sideline, do they stick with what they want to do, or do they start questioning themselves and Kalen DeBoer, make some gambles, which we know he likes to do. It's a really interesting chess match.
I like proof of concept, and we have no proof of concept on Vandy with this level of platform, right? We have no idea how they handle this level of pressure. You were just down there in Nashville. Did you get a sense of how the team is there pressure being felt in the locker room? Like, how are they handling this week?
Again, I think that they all take the lead of their leader, Diego Pavia, and he is just so confident, so comfortable in his own skin with this program, with his teammates. I think there is an intangible there that helps them go into an environment like Alabama and perform the way that they need to perform. Now, is that going to be good enough to win the game? I don't know. Obviously, Alabama, like I said, one of the most talented teams in the country. They have very good players, and they're going to be at home, and they're going to want to rectify what happened last year. I'm sure that's been drilled into them all week long by Kalen DeBoer and that staff. But I don't think Vanderbilt's a team that the moment is too big for or anything like that, because they're old. They're experienced. They've got guys who are 23, 24 years old all across that roster. So I think they're going to play well. It's just a matter of whether it's good enough.
Is that sustainable for Vandy? Because you talked about what they're building moving forward. Is that the method for Vandy? Like, we're going to get guys to transfer over that are a little older, bring them in as grad students basically, and let them play football?
I think it's a huge part of it. But everything now is so year to year. What does your roster need? Where are you in recruiting? What can you go into the portal, and how much money do you have to spend on players? Vanderbilt, I think the big emphasis coming out of this run, this last couple years, is going to be about how much money can we raise to sustain this level of play for many, many years to come. And Clark Lee, the football coach, I sat in his office yesterday or 2 days ago, and he was very, very adamant that they need a football operations facility. The NIL stuff has kind of papered over the facilities. They've put a ton of money into facilities at Vanderbilt across a variety of sports. Their football stadium now looks phenomenal. They're closing those end zones, but they need a football operations building. That's kind of the next phase for them. And I think they need to take advantage of these moments and these potential wins that they're getting to show their donors and their fan base, hey, if you invest, this is what's possible. We need to keep this going. And I think that's what they're going to try to do, absolutely, is get experienced guys and just raise the overall level of their recruiting.
There's been an interesting trend, I think, in college football. I think Tennessee is maybe a microcosm of it. Nico Iamaleava gets all of that money in NIL. He's a 5-star quarterback recruit, the number 2 recruit at that position in the country. And then he moves on to UCLA. Joey Aguilar, kind of a journeyman JUCO guy, now steps in, and he looks much more explosive at Tennessee than Nico Iamaleava ever did. I think that this quarterback matchup, Vandy and Bama, is kind of a similar clashing of 2 different paths. You have Diego Pavia, who came up through the JUCO ranks, versus Ty Simpson. Same thing. 5-star quarterback recruited by Nick Saban, is probably making a very healthy amount in NIL. What do you think this matchup could be indicative of, or a narrative of, in terms of how you win at the quarterback position?
Well, it's an interesting question, and I just think everyone is trying to figure it out, right? Because there's no formula yet that we can look at with the small amount of data we have in this era that, okay, this is exactly what works. Look at Clemson just as an example. Okay, Clemson's had Cade Klubnik in their program for 4 years, and he is a guy that they've developed, and they put all their chips in the middle to make him the guy. And here we sit, he's a NFL prospect who is underperforming, and he's not living up to expectations. And there's concern. There was even talk this last week. Somebody asked Dabo Swinney if he was going to still be the starting quarterback going forward, and you could have never imagined that. With all the offseason talk about him being a top 5 pick and a potential Heisman contender. So, Ty Simpson, there's always going to be room for guys who stick with a program and develop and grow over years. And, this guy's not a walk-on. I mean, he was a highly rated player, and credit to him for sticking it out at one program. But look, there's also space for guys to move around and try to find the right opportunity. Only one quarterback is going to play, barring an injury. So guys go to a place, it doesn't work out for whatever reason, system fit, coaching issues, just not the right school for them, they miss home, all those things. That's why the one-time transfer is great. Now, we can debate about whether people should be able to transfer every single year. I don't know that that's so healthy for the sport or for those players, but for the sport of college football and the ability to address quarterback issues, I think there's room for all types here. And I think we're seeing that in this matchup this weekend.
Diego Pavia is going to have a chance to write his legacy this weekend, or continue to, but let's not get it twisted. He wrote his legacy when he won the landmark court decision, giving him an extra year of eligibility, changing the future of college football forever for JUCO kids. So it's a wild time in college football. Dan, enjoy the Tuscaloosa battle. It's going to be an epic one. We appreciate you coming on. Thanks for all the insight, my friend.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan.
Great stuff from Dan Wolken. The future of college football is always changing. So's the future of college basketball. The NCAA tournament is expanding. We'll tell you about it. Executives are inching closer to an agreement to expand the NCAA tournament to 76 teams, with the 12-game opening round played at 2 sites starting in 26-27 per Ross Dellinger. Yahoo Sports Daily, Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz. Caroline, I hate this. I hate this so much. I can't even put into words how much I hate all of this. Like, this is gross. Going to 76. Like, what are we doing? Who's out there asking for 76 games in the NCAA tournament?
Nobody wants this. Like, literally not one single sports fan in America wants this. Even sports fans of teams who have been number 69, number 70, who have been on the outside looking in on Selection Sunday, I guarantee you, not even they want this. And as sports fans, as college sports fans, we are screaming for so many revisions and changes to maybe not make the Wild West that is college sports not so Wild West. Standardization of scheduling, or, you know, a pseudo cap in NIL. We want those kinds of things in college sports. We don't want 76 teams in the NCAA tournament. And it is so clear and it is so obvious to all of us that this is just for money. And look, that's fine. It's not NCAA.gov. Okay. This is a for-profit organization, and these TV networks are in it to make a profit, and more games means more profit. We all understand that. We all know that. I do understand these are entities that are coming up to make money. But so much of college sports, Fitz, has felt like it's just for money. That there are changes that are being made just to line the pockets of the powers that be. And I'm over it. I'm tired of it. Nobody wants more teams in the NCAA tournament. Let's address the actual issues that are happening in college sports. Not adding more teams to the tournament. We don't need that. We do not need that. Never, ever, ever in its history has number 68 won a national championship.
Look, you're right. And
right?
I,
mean,
I
would
guess the
assume
thing
I-
for
I
me is
have-
like I respect honesty. Genuinely, like if the NCAA came out and said, "Y'all, we want to make more money, and we know you guys are suckers. You're going to watch it either way, so we're going to expand the tournament." All right, please, sir, can I have another? Like I would actually respect the hell out of that. Like I respect honest communication. But if you're going to come in and say, "Well, this is really about making sure that we don't do anything, that discredits the automatic qualifiers, and we want to try and find a way," what are we doing?
Like,
Part
no,
of the
it's not.
magic. Yeah, 100%. I mean, part of the magic to me of the NCAA tournament is Selection Sunday, and it's seeing everybody sit in their gyms and wait. Did our names get called? Did our names get called? And the last couple of years, when we've gotten to that final little bubble, there's been very little to get that mad about, right? Like, sure, we can get a little bit irritated with the occasional big team that's left out of it, but I mean, last year among the first teams out, an Indiana team that finished with 13 losses, including losing 8 of 10 at one point, and a Nebraska team that didn't qualify for the Big Ten tournament. Well, glory be to God, we got to find a way to get them into our postseason. What the hell are we doing? Like, you negate the opportunity to make a great moment out of selecting these teams, and you expand a tournament that already feels at this point like it's lost a little bit of its first couple of days luster with some of these matchups. Like, we don't want to see more blowouts. We don't want to see more bad teams. We don't want to see opening qualifying games. Like, how many people really desperately go to watch the qualifying matchup where the first 4 teams are trying to find their way into the tournament? Like, I get it. We all want an excuse to skip work and go to Buffalo Wild Wings, but this ain't it. Like, you're reducing so much of the impact at the beginning of the tournament. At this point, if you're going to raise it to 76, screw it. Just let everybody in. If that's what you're going to do, just make it a full tournament for everybody and take away all the magic.
And honestly, like those first round, qualifying rounds, like those feel fake anyways. Like, it doesn't feel like the tournament. It doesn't feel like the tournament until the field of 68 is decided and it's opened up. Like the first round, like the qualifying round, honestly doesn't feel like the Buffalo Wild Wings day to me. It doesn't feel real. It almost feels like we're delaying the inevitable of these teams that barely squeak in are just going to get bounced anyways. And I don't think that expanding to 76 dilutes the NCAA tournament. Because when you go from 68 to 76, yes, you're just adding more teams, but it doesn't feel the same as like college football playoff going from 4 to 12 and tripling in size. The NCAA tournament still means something. Making the tournament still means something. I don't think that goes away when you expand it. It just seems pointless. It just seems like you're delaying the inevitable that much more. And I think part of the reason why we love the NCAA tournament is Cinderellas and, the St. Peters of the world taking down the Kentuckys of the world in the first round of the tournament. We all love that. It's fun. We fall in love with the Loyola Chicagos of the world. But let's not kid ourselves. Having Houston, Florida, Auburn, and Duke in the Final Four last year, that was good. Like, those were blue bloods. Those were legitimate national championship contenders. All love in the world to the St. Peters of the world. I don't need to see them in the Elite Eight. I think everyone gets over the Cinderellas once we get into the Sweet 16, once we get to the Elite Eight. So all you're really doing in adding, 8 teams into the tournament is just adding 8 more teams that probably don't really belong. You're not adding 8 legitimate national championship contenders. Nobody really wants to see that. All you're doing is just adding more teams that are probably going to get bounced in the first round anyways. And if they don't, then great. We'll all celebrate it. We'll all have a great time watching, insert random directional school here take down the Dukes and the Houstons of the world. But what does that really do for the tournament? Is it the tournament exponentially better because 8 teams can just barely skate in? Like, I don't think so. I don't think the tournament is better because of that.
It also doesn't fix the core problems that are plaguing college basketball right now. Like, St. Francis last year went to the NCAA tournament, and after they were eliminated in the first round, to the surprise of no one, they declassified to D3 because they cited unsustainable costs of having a Division I college basketball program. So I understand that what you're trying to do is get more TV money. You're trying to make a Tuesday, Wednesday as impactful as Thursday, Friday is for that week. I understand that's what you're trying to do, but at what cost? You're not actually fixing anything. Like, I live minutes from University of Central Connecticut, which went in to their conference championship game with the opportunity to go to the NCAA tournament, and they lost in a heartbreaker. And as a result, They didn't get to go to the postseason. That's just part of the magic of what March is. There has to be something on the line for all of us to care. And the problem that we have here long term is that at some point, all of this just continues to devalue the rest of what you're watching for. If everybody's going to make the tournament, then why do we really care about conference tournaments? Conference tournaments won't matter for 90% of the teams. If you make it to the point, like part of the magic has been, oh my God, you really need to go win if you're Belmont or Lipscomb, you better win your conference tournament, even if you had a great year, because you want to make sure that you have the chance to still go to the NCAA tournament. And if you're one of these middle of the pack teams in the Big Ten, you're trying to win your way in. There's still magic to that. So we spend 2 weeks paying attention to conference tournaments that now will be absolutely, completely meaningless. This just continues to devalue everything else that we watch in college basketball, which already struggles to get through. Like, y'all aren't going to watch college basketball in October and November because there are bigger things going on, even when the sport finally starts up. You're not going to watch college basketball in January because the NFL playoffs are there. Now you're not going to watch college basketball all the way through February because the NFL playoffs and the college football landscape takes up too much mind. You got like a month where people actually give a damn about college basketball, and what you're doing is you're killing everything that leads up to the tournament. You are telling the entire world, tune out, we'll tell you who makes the tournament, then you can watch a bunch of teams get slaughtered for 2 days while you skip work, and then we'll give you meaningful basketball. Like, long term, I don't think that's good for the sport.
Belmont, by the way, lovely basketball program, big fan.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't think expansion breaks anything. It doesn't. We're still going to love the NCAA tournament. It's not going to ruin the NCAA tournament. But it also doesn't fix anything. So why do it? Why do it if it doesn't fill or fulfill a need or a desire of sports fans? Why do it if it doesn't exponentially improve the experience of the tournament? Why do it if it doesn't change the level of competition in the tournament? Because I don't think that it would. If it doesn't fix anything other than fixing, your revenue and, fixing your bank accounts, which that's exactly why they're doing it. If it doesn't fix the experience for the fans, which is what the NCAA claims to exist for, to serve student athletes and to serve sports fans, which, I think is a whole crock of what, but I digress. That's a conversation for a different day. If it doesn't do anything or serve anyone except for you, what's the point?
The point is money, and we're all just sitting here as part of the game while they make more money doing what they're doing at the cost of a sport that, frankly, I love. All right, let's get into some picks. We're going to do it next. It's Yahoo Sports Daily. We got to figure out who's going to win this weekend. Got some big games. We'll pick them for you next. fall is the best season of the year. October is the best month of the year. I'll give you both. It's fall better than summer.
October's like the summer of fall. This is the perfect example of that one tweet that always goes viral whenever a wide receiver tweets something like this. Here's how a quarterback tweets, like, great team win, everybody, go team. And a receiver tweets like, my enemy speaks slow and carries. And there it is. There it is. It's like, that is exactly what AJ Brown is tweeting out.
I knew this was coming, and I know, look at you guys, maniacally waiting for me to make this pick. Let's go Seattle, Milwaukee in the World Series.
Hey, we're a big dumper show here. We love the big dumper.
We love the big dumper.
A Saints team that's not good, but is like fine, and Spencer Rattler can kind of operate. I've been comparing him to Mark Bulger to kind of give you a nice throwback name there.
The Sark hair on the thirst strap? What do we?
I like it.
Like, the abs are good, but the hair is just like, we got. Like,
let's not act like Sark's real hair in real life is much better. Sprayable on a baldy.
Yeah, and that's like, that is the most Mike Vrabel thing I have ever seen in my life.
I get a band of my own choosing to come to my house each summer for a private concert. So we've done that for a few years, and highly recommend it if you can get your favorite bands to come to your house for a concert. I highly endorse that.
Could we get the invite to your house for the concerts? I don't know if they're coming to my house.
If you like my kind of music, you're always welcome.
So basically what I'm telling you is it's been a long damn time since anybody pooped the bed the way the Yankees did at the bottom of the ninth inning and the Red Sox get the big win. Oh, look at this. Bye, because we've got NFL bye weeks. This is the moment where I shamelessly tell you I went to high school with JC. We're buddies. So, like, I'm going to send this to him, and I'm going to let him know he didn't get his face on the show.
No
I don't know
way.
what happened.
I didn't know
I'm
that.
sorry, JC.
Yeah,
I'll fix that next time.
Yahoo Sports Daily, probably a career high for him.
No,
maybe,
no, there's not.
Why does he look like that?
Why
does he look so much different as a pumpkin than he does in real life?
Trevor, never cut your hair, dude. We now know what you look like with no hair. Do not cut your hair, dude.
Hell yeah, that is what I'm talking about. No more of these stupid, gimmicky, not even cool looking alternate uniforms when you're trying to be cool and swag and different. No, just go back to the good old days. Take notes, Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins, and your all whites and your all blacks and your dark modes and your chrome helmets and your matte helmets. Save it.
I personally like a matte helmet. I like matte helmets a lot. I would love to have, I stand by that. All right, Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports Daily, as we're breaking down everything you need to know for the weekend. Let's make our picks. We're going to get our picks up here, and we're going to figure out how we feel about the big games. We picked some big games here. We'll see how we're doing on this as we go through Yahoo Sports Daily's Pick 6. Let's start with Clemson at UNC. Who you got, Caroline?
I'm taking Clemson. And, at the beginning of the season, on paper, I would have said, yeah, I'm going to take Clemson and I'm going to take them emphatically. Now I'm taking them with a whole lot of hesitation in my voice. And I'm picking this because Clemson should beat UNC. Clemson has the talent to clubber UNC. So I'm just going to ride with that versus what we kind of know about Clemson. And that is the fact that they are underachieving by epic proportions. Take Clemson, and I don't feel great about it.
Look, you're right. Clemson's better. Clemson's got better players. Clemson's got a deeper roster. But UNC's coming off a bye week. If Bill can't win off a bye week in college football, then what in the hell is Bill doing? I will take UNC to shock the world and beat Clemson. I don't feel good about that.
You know what Bill's doing. You know what he's doing.
He's on to Cincinnati. I know what he's doing. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to not get fired by saying what he's actually doing. Raiders at Colts. We'll always pick the Raiders game and always pick the LSU game, but LSU gets the weekend off. So Raiders at Colts in what's being called the Me Bowl. All right, Caroline, what you got in the Fitz Bowl?
The Fitz Bowl.
Yep.
Raiders the Fitz's Raiders heart team and his Colts head team. I am just very glad that my team's on a bye because my team can't hurt me this week. Unfortunately, Fitz, I do feel like your team will be hurting you this week. I know the Colts lost last week, but man, it even encouraged me even more, even in the loss. I will take Daniel Jones, league MVP, and the Indianapolis Colts to take down your Raiders, Fitz. I'm sorry.
Yeah, best offensive lineman for the Raiders has been put on IR, Colton Miller, which is going to make a bad offensive line even worse. And the Colts can do so much offensively. The Raiders have done a nice job stuffing the run, but they haven't been tested the way they'll be tested in this game. The Colts will establish the run, and because they've established the run, then they'll be able to throw. And this is going to be a very, very long Sunday for me. I think the Colts win this by 2 touchdowns at least. So I'll take the Colts in a big, emphatic win over my beloved Raiders. That just means that it's going to be a very long Sunday. We've talked a lot about Vandy at Bama, the revenge game. All right, let me tell you this, Caroline. All right, this is first. Go ahead. Who are you going to pick in this one? I'll let you pick first.
I'm taking Bama. They should win, right? They're not overlooking Vanderbilt this year. There's probably a fair argument to be made. They were overlooking them a bit last year, coming off of a big win over Georgia. They're not overlooking them. They are at home. Bryant-Denny is an incredibly intimidating place to play. Ty Simpson looked great against Georgia. Bama should win, right? But I'm also not that confident. Like, I don't think that this is going to be an Alabama blowout. Alabama cannot stop the run. Georgia ran for 7 yards a carry last week. Vanderbilt can run the ball. Alabama also can't run the ball. This is all going to be in the hands of Ty Simpson. If Bama scores quick, then Vandy's just going to eat up clock as much as they possibly can. How are you supposed to score when you don't have the ball? So I do think Alabama should win, but also I think there's an avenue where Vanderbilt shocks the world yet again. But I will ride with the Tide for now.
My heart wants Vandy to win, but here's the thing. When I was a little kid, I've got an older brother, and he's much, much stronger than I am. And we used to have those metal Tonka trucks, like the big Tonka trucks, right? So when I was really little, I would run into the room when my mom wasn't there, and I'd smack my brother in the head with it. And then I would run out of the room and I'd start crying and then I'd tell my mom that he hit me. And that way, like, he got in trouble. He got double in trouble. It was the greatest idea for me as a kid for a minute. And then one day I walked in and my brother had wisened up and he was ready for me. And the day that he was ready for me, I took a butt whooping like I had never taken before in my life that I had earned. I think what you have is an Alabama team that last year got surprised. They got hit over the head with the Tonka truck. They didn't see it coming. They've spent a year waiting for this moment. And now in Tuscaloosa, Vandy's going to walk back into that stadium, and they're ready for him. If Kalen DeBoer can't have Alabama up for this game, then he shouldn't be the head coach of Bama. If Bama can't roll in this game, then Bama has serious concerns. I want Vandy to win, and I think they have the opportunity to be competitive, but this should be the most fired-up Alabama team, even more than Georgia. This should be the most fired-up version of the Tide that we've seen all year. I think Bama wins because I think they roll early. They get a couple of scores on the board early. Vandy can't run the ball at that point, and that's the way this game plays out. What about the matchup, the uni matchup of all time, Bucks at Seahawks? What do you got?
The greatest uniform matchup ever in the history of sports ever of all time across the globe. Give me the Bucks. They're my team of destiny. I have fallen in love with this plucky Buccaneers team. Let me ride with Baker Mayfield. The Bucks take down the Seahawks.
I am sneaky becoming a Seahawks fan over the course of this year, largely because their defense, which is third in the NFL in DVOA, is absolutely playing lights out. I think third. It's in the top of the NFL in DVOA. Seahawks defense is going to be able to make a big move in this one. And look, I'm in on their QB. So I think the better team here, Seahawks. We're differing on a lot of games this week. I love this. I'll take the Seahawks. What about Texas at Florida? What do you got on that one?
Buckle up. Give me the Gators. Give me Florida to take down Texas. Everybody's written off Billy Napier. Everybody's written off Florida. I'm probably in that boat too. But this happened last year when we all wrote Billy Napier off. When I thought that he was a dead man walking, bam, they turn around and beat LSU. Then bam, they turn around and beat Ole Miss. This is Texas's first trip to the swamp in the SEC. The swamp is not an easy place to play. Has Florida looked bad? Yes, they have. But also, so has Texas. And getting quote-unquote right against Sam Houston State is not enough for me to believe that Arch Manning and this Texas team has all of a sudden turned over a new leaf. What Florida needs to do is run the ball. Run. Keep the ball out of DJ Lagway's hands because he has a tendency to give it to the other team, which is awfully very generous of him. It's like Santa Claus giving out gifts whenever he throws the football. But if Florida's able to establish the run and their defense plays at the level they've been playing all season long, they're a top 25 unit, I think Florida's able to shock the world and take down Texas.
So that defense has some injuries on it that makes me a little bit nervous, and Arch makes me nervous in this game because Arch is going to turn the ball over. I genuinely believe that. This is going to be an ugly football game, and the Swamp is just
low
such
scoring
a
slog.
this feels like, hammer the over on interceptions, hammer the under on points. But man, DJ is just a liability right now, and I don't trust, even if this game is close. If I need a drive to win it, I don't trust that DJ can do that and not turn the football over. I'm taking Texas in this game, but I think you're right in that this is going to be a very, very close game. I think it's an ugly football game. This is the sort of game that sets back the entire narrative that SEC teams are just better, because we're going to watch two ugly teams go at it, and they're ugly because their offenses just aren't in sync in my mind, or Backstreet. The Commanders at the Chargers. We'll get one more. I had to get a 90s boy band reference in there. Commanders at Chargers. The return of Jaden Daniels versus the Chargers coming off a loss to Jackson Dart. What say you, Caroline Fenton?
Yeah, I mean, long road trip for the Commanders. You don't love that. You're going across, 3-4 different time zones? And Jaden Daniels coming back from injury. You hope that he doesn't have a lot of rust to kind of shake off early. So a lot working against the Commanders. Defense wins championships. The Chargers have a very good defense, but offense is sexier. And I will ride with the sexy team. I will ride with Jaden Daniels making his return. I will take the Washington Commanders to hand the Chargers their second consecutive L.
Man, this one's tough because Jaden being back makes such a big difference for the Commanders. And the Chargers are beat up on the offensive line, but losing two straight. Joe Alt is out. Like, I'm rethinking this all. Like, 10 minutes ago, I was wildly confident. I will keep my pick. I will remain wildly confident that the Chargers in this situation will be able to get enough out of their offense to keep this thing right. But, man, injuries are decimating the Chargers. Like, we talked a lot about the 49ers. I think this year, they're sort of the later before the season started, moved Joe Alt to the other side of the line, and now have lost Joe Alt. They've got injuries all across their offensive line. They lost Najee, as we all know. Like, it's just, it stacks up and up and up. But I also can't get out of my mind the fact that, that Herbert has looked really good in this offense. Quentin Johnston's been better than I expected in this offense. Ladd McConkey hasn't really taken off. I wonder if this is a game where they just start feeding the ball to Ladd quickly and often. I feel like the Chargers win this game, but I think of all the games we picked on this entire slate, Commanders at Chargers might be the toughest one for me to figure out. I'll go Chargers, but I don't feel great about it. We picked tough games. Like, when are they going to give us cupcakes?
Seriously, like, make our jobs easy. I don't want to have to work hard at my job. Are you crazy? I'm kidding. I think this one is so difficult because the injury factor can be such a question mark. That the Chargers, like you mentioned, they went from having 2 left tackles to now having none, with no Rashawn Slater and no Joe Alt. I worry about their ability to run the football. I'm high on Marion Hampton and what he can be in this league, but this week I worry about it with Justin Herbert being under duress. And this is not a Commander's pass rush that is gonna, make you tinkle down your leg a little bit. Doesn't absolutely terrify you, but against, a just kind of cut and pasted offensive line together, why can't this Commanders pass rush get home? I think this is, and then the Jaden Daniels of it all. What does Jaden Daniels look like coming back off of an injury? He's been a full go at practice. Maybe he's had some opportunity to ramp up over the last couple of days, but there's no guarantee after you've been out for the last 2 weeks and some change. The injury factors are always, I think, the X factors, the wild cards, and there are so many that are, impactful in this game.
I think across the board throughout the course of the NFL and the early portion of the season, as much as we talk about quarterbacks, we're 4 weeks in, and it's already time to remind everybody there are not 32 starting caliber left tackles in the NFL. There are not 32 starting caliber right tackles. Offensive line play is bad and it's thin. And so at some point, the amount of shifting that teams are having to do right now up front is going to create problems. Somebody that created problems for offensive linemen for an entire generation, Hall of Famer Jared Allen, going to join us next on Yahoo Sports Daily. At Yahoo Sports, we cover every sport, including the 2025 USA Mullet Championships. You see it there. This is it, the final round of the USA Mullet Championships. The top 25 have brought their biggest flow and boldest energy, and now it all comes down to the last votes. Every daily vote makes a difference, and every donation helps support Jared Allen's Home for Wounded Warriors. Jared Allen, Hall of Famer, joins us right now. I'm telling you, man, I lived, I played country music for a whole chapter of my life. I lived on tour buses. Wounded Warriors, something every country musician knows about. It's an amazing cause. Mullets, every country musician knows about mullets. What are we doing in this one, brother? Are you a judge? Are you a competitor? How are you involved in mullet competitions?
Yeah, so I'm a judge. And the competition directly supports my foundation, Jared Allen's Homes for Wounded Warriors, and we build handicap accessible homes for wounded vets all over the country. And we're because every dollar, some of these competitions are pay for voting. We don't do that. Every dollar donated goes directly to the foundation. So the competition doesn't take any of the money that's donated. So it's been a fun little deal over the last couple of years. They've provided a lot of support for us. And it's been cool, and to see these kids with the flow and some of these adults, man, it's great. You get to read the fun stories and vote on these things, and then we kick it up a little bit. I think this year we're going to give out 10,000 as prize money to each winner for each category. So yeah, it's been a fun little deal, all for a good cause.
Yeah, absolutely, for a wonderful cause, and thank you for everything that you do for that cause. What exactly goes into judging a mullet? Is it length? Volume, color?
That's a good question, right? So I'm about the continuity. Sorry about that. So it's like you can't just have long hair and then have some sides cut short with a straggly top. Like a mullet has to transcend where you're going, right? That's the whole point of it. Party business in the front, party in the back. So can you be in a boardroom and then go to Talladega, and cheer on NASCAR? Like, what I mean? It just can't be like, oh, this is a country style haircut. I want to see it fit in Manhattan. I want to see it fitting in the small towns of America. It's got to be transitional across many platforms. So I look for continuity of how it fades, how it transitions from top to back. Is the back and the top. So it doesn't always have to be the longest. It just has to have a good constant flow. You know what I mean? It's just got to fit the essence of the person too.
The rare versatile mullet. The rare boardroom mullet. It is hard to come by, but that is not the Hall of Fame for nothing.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You got to be able to present it in all standards. If I put a suit on, do I look great? There you go. Look at the mullet. The mullet's enshrined forever. So that's what I look for when I'm judging a mullet. Is it timeless?
The mullet is enshrined forever. You are enshrined forever in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You were just inducted this past year. So congratulations. And when Fitz brought you in, he said Hall of Famer Jared Allen. When you hear that, what do you think of?
Oh, you know what? I think of all the people that helped me along the way to get there. I think of when I was 8 years old and I told my dad I wanted to play pro ball. I think of all the countless hours and hard work of trying to win championships that went into it. I don't think anybody that's actually in the Hall of Fame, started their career and said, I want to be a Hall of Famer, because, that's not what team sports is about, right? Team sports is about you're trying to obviously, win championships, and the byproduct is you become the best player of your time, of your position, of whatever, and you get honored with this accolade. So for me, the gold jacket represents a multitude of things, my family, friends, coaches, teammates. But yeah, it's that complete journey of from a young kid to when I retired, and you get to look back and reflect and be like, you know what, I played the game the right way. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that it's that sign of respect. It's that affirmation that you did it right.
Jared, I was at the Super Bowl this year talking to Eli the day before all the voting came through. Obviously, he did not get in on that first ballot. What would your message be to guys that are waiting for that opportunity and waiting for that knock?
You try the same message Chris Carter gave me. He said, once you get in, the process fades away. And it does, because I was frustrated with the process too, right? You hear all the stats. I was a first ballot finalist with Peyton and all those guys. And, I was told, like, oh, if you don't get in your first year, it's like 98% chance you're in the next year. Well, that didn't happen. And then it's like, okay. And then all of a sudden, you start being kind of competitive. You're comparing yourself to people that you're like, why am I comparing myself to these people? There's nothing I can do about it. I have respect for all these guys. So I think, the process can be frustrating, and I know the Hall is trying to figure out ways and talk to guys about how they can make the process smoother for for the finalists and that kind of stuff. But my advice is understand that the body of work is the body of work. You've already done it. You're in the conversation. You're there for a reason. And God's time will always be the right time. And so, but once you're in, no one sits there and asks, "Oh, how long did it take you to get in?" or this, that, and the other. It really does. Chris Carter was 100% right. Once you're in the process phase and you get to enjoy the moment with your friends and family, and then obviously the other gold jackets. That's the best part about the whole thing, is sitting and talking to, the guys from different generations and just soaking it all in. So, patience. I know it's frustrating for guys, and just try to remember, once you're in, it all goes away.
Yeah, one of those sacks right there, one of your most prolific one-handed sack of Eli Manning. He wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer like Fitz just mentioned. Should he have been?
You know what? I don't know. You know what I try to do? I try not to get into that argument of who should be where, right? Because then you're kind of I don't know what's the best word. You're kind of picking apart, guys had fantastic careers, right? That's the voters decide. I'll tell you what, Eli has done some great things in his career, right? I think he's one of the few people that has, 2 Super Bowls and 2 Super Bowl MVPs. So, I don't know his overall numbers and that kind of stuff, because I'm just, don't really like quarterbacks in general that much. But I was paid to dislike these prima donnas. So no, I think, he was a first ballot finalist, so it's a matter of time. I mean, again, how many quarterbacks are in the Hall, how many quarterbacks to put up great numbers? But at the end of the day, if winning championships is what this game is about, I mean, he's got 2, and he beat Tom Brady for 2 of them. So I would say that he performed at a very elite level. Obviously, all of his time with New York, and New York hasn't been the same since he's been gone. So, from that standpoint, again, I think he's a finalist for a reason, and his time will come, and we'll all welcome him with open arms. But that's one thing I kind of told myself when I got in. I wouldn't, or even when I was a finalist, I never would go and knock or try to pick apart or try to distinguish between who should be in, who shouldn't be in, that kind of, just because, it is a fraternity, it is a brotherhood. And at the end of the day, we're all going to go through the same process, and the voters are going to pick us apart enough that, you know what, when you get in, we're going to welcome you with open arms. And if you don't, I'm going to have empathy for that, because I know what it feels like to think you're getting in and to be let down. So, the process will play out. And Eli is a hell of a competitor, man. I love playing against him, love playing against Peyton. It made me a better player.
Jared, you obviously made a bunch of your legacy with the Vikings. They take on a rookie quarterback in London. They got Dylan Gabriel going at him. What do you expect for a rookie against that defense?
Failure, complete failure. Then I'll pick him apart. He's a rookie. I could care less about that guy. No, I hope Brian Flores blitzes the absolute tar out of him. That was my philosophy when we were playing, from Vic Fangio to Gunther Cunningham used to say, like, a rookie quarterback, we are going to test you, and we're going to make you see if you know anything about the NFL and what you're looking at defensive wise. So, I mean, I expect them to be completely aggressive, blitz the ever loving crap out of the kid, and get as many people in his face around him at all times to see if you can't get him nervous. And if he beats you like that, kudos to him. That means he's a heck of a player. But I would expect Brian Flores to be insanely aggressive, especially coming off a close loss. We had an opportunity to win that one against the Steelers. So I'm looking forward to them cleaning up the run defense and just absolutely getting after this guy.
It's the USA Mullet Championships. Jared Allen's home for Wounded Warriors. I'll go make a donation right now. Make sure you get out there, get involved with it, Jared. We appreciate your time, man. Thanks for everything you're doing for Wounded Warriors.
My pleasure.
Really
Thanks again. You guys are great.
Thanks for hanging out.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I mean, absolutely great stuff from Jared, obviously. And, it's always electric when you see somebody get into the Hall. And it's a reminder, we spend a lot of time debating these things, Caroline, but to the guys involved, it's not just stats. It's not just people yelling into a mic. It's not just a debate. It's their entire life's work being put on trial, and they have no say in the process. It's maddening to me what it must feel like to go through that.
It's for us to debate, right? And they're fun debates to have, whether it's in front of a microphone on Yahoo Sports Daily or if it's at the dinner table with your family or out at a bar with your friends. They're fun discussions for us to have. But I do think when you are part of that, elite group, a very, it's a sanctity being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I think that's the right approach of, look, I am lucky enough and blessed enough to be in this position. How in the world should I say that somebody shouldn't have this same honor? And honestly, Fitz, I did want to ask him, like, where do you keep your gold jacket? Like, is it just like on a hanger in your closet? Do you frame
no,
it?
you frame
Do
that.
you
You
keep
frame
it in
that.
a vault?
You
Like,
frame it and you put it in your foyer because Jared Allen's got a foyer.
He's
You put it
definitely
in the
got a
foyer.
He got a chandelier
Right,
in that foyer.
You
Foyer.
open up the doors at foyer. Yeah, you don't pronounce the R when you're Jared Allen. Like
It's
it's
foyer.
a foyer, and it hangs there with like lights on it and like all of that. Here's what I know: it's going to be a wild weekend. We'll be back on Monday. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. We really appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. Come back Monday morning. We'll be here.